welcome back to my channel. So today I have another review, but this is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to be reviewing The Sun Is Also a Star, which I listened to the audiobook for, but I'm also going to be reviewing the movie and doing it more as like a comparison than just a pure review of like the story or anything. I wanted to do it this way because I started with the audiobook and I was enjoying it so much. I was like, I'd love to see how the movie did it. So I borrowed the movie and watched that too. And I generally don't like look at adaptations that quickly and in comparison to each other. I will compare adaptations. If I've like read the book and then see the movie or vice versa, I will compare notes, but usually it's not so like within such short a span of each other, and as it was in that short span this time, I pointed out a lot of things to me in comparison, so that's why I want to do this as more of like a comparison review than just a straight out if I liked the story or not, which, spoilers, I did like the story. But yeah, so that's kind of just my thoughts on it. I do have a whole bunch of notes that I'll kind of be reading off so that I can try to remember what I wanted to say about it. Overall, though, I liked the book better than the movie, which isn't super surprising, especially with the setup of the book. You're getting a lot of like personalized narration, a lot more depth into the characters, and when you're in a story that technically only lasts for like a day, it really helps to have that. And you got a lot more narrative perspectives from the book because you had like the lady at the immigration office that you got some background on, you got more background on the lawyer person. And so I felt like it gave you a better depth and a better sense of how faded the relationship between Daniel and Natasha really was in the book. So overall, I liked the book better. The movie wasn't bad, but ironically, I guess, since it was taking place only over a day and you get those less perspectives, it tended to end up feeling a little more forced to me, and or like they were trying to rush some of the things. I guess with the movie they did change the timeline too. Instead of it just being the course of a single day, they did jump it from it's like a day plus a night and a morning. So that was a little shaky, and some of the changes that they made for that, I was like, oh, this is purely so they can do this scene in the movie versus it actually making like much narrative sense to have added that structure to it, where sometimes if you do changes like that, I'm like, oh, I see why you would change that, and I actually like that change. But yeah, in this case, I didn't really see the point of changing the timeline on it, and I didn't like it, but they did it, so here we are. So a few random nitpicky things are going to be on this list too. For example, the first thing I made note of is that in the movie, Daniel applies to go to Dartmouth instead of Harvard, and I don't really understand why you would change that. Like, it's just an Ivy League fancy school either way, so why would it matter which one he's going to? I mean, I guess maybe Dartmouth has a better medical program, which is what Daniel was going into, but I don't understand changes like that. They did just completely take away that character that I was talking about a minute ago in the movie. The immigration lady who was like checking belongings, completely left her out of the story. And as soon as she was gone from the story, I was like, well, how are Daniel and Natasha gonna meet again in the end? This is stupid. I don't like this. And I mean, the way that they changed it, Natasha ended up coming back to New York and looking for him, which is fine, but it's less faded that way if she's like purposefully looking for him. And I liked the faded sense from the book that it was like, this lady here was at the start of things checking Natasha's belongings, and she was at the end of things on the plane ride where she's like, oh, thank you, you saved my life, to Natasha. And they get talking, and then Daniel hears it and he's like, Natasha? And then she's like, Daniel? And that had a fun faded feeling to it at the end. So I'm disappointed in that. Also, another way that they changed that faded feeling is that the lawyer reschedules with Daniel instead of Daniel choosing Natasha and being like, I'm just going to reschedule my appointment with this guy so that I can spend more time with you, you know? That's how the book goes. And it's like, it strengthened their feeling of being faded, that they'd been together for a long time, even though it was only a day that they'd done any of these interactions. That was a good, strong relationship builder. And in the movie, it was like, we're just going to throw that away and just going to make the lawyer reschedule. And I was like, this is stupid. It makes sense in the context of, like, the lawyer getting into a car accident, then he would reschedule with people. But he doesn't reschedule with Natasha or anything. So it's just like, this is stupid. This is stupid. You're taking away that faded feeling and you're not even being consistent. So, yeah. Also, we got Natasha on the phone with her family more throughout the day, which didn't really happen in the book. In the book, she pretty much just, like, ignored them and was like, I'm choosing Daniel because I'm not talking to my family, and I'm also upset that we're leaving and all that. And the movie didn't do that, and that was frustrating. After a point, it did get to that with Natasha. Like, they have their time in the park, and then it's like, oh, I guess that's where we're going, and... yeah, so after the time in the park, we had that, but it was frustrating. So yeah. They did kind of change how Daniel saves Natasha, because they took out, like, the record store thing and all that. But narratively, for a movie, it made sense with some of the changes they were doing. I was kind of disappointed they didn't put Natasha's ex-boyfriend in at all. But again, narratively, they had less perspectives that they wanted to work with or could work with in the movie, so that's just a thing they did. Yeah. Let's see. And then in the movie, they had her actually show him the museum, which I was like, but that was part of their faded feeling, that he got to show her some of the stuff he liked, and she didn't get to show him some of the stuff she liked, but that they wanted to show all these things to each other, and that was part of her choosing Daniel, was being like, I should have taken him to see this, I wanted to take him to see this, and to me, the scene in the karaoke, which I originally thought they weren't going to do when they sent Natasha and him to the museum in the movie, but they did end up doing it in the book, movie and the book. But the book's version of the karaoke scene, I felt like, had much better chemistry. The singing was just kind of weird, and I didn't like that they didn't give them both a chance to sing in the movie. Also, just a personal note, I hate falsetto, so him singing in falsetto was not appealing to me at all. But again, that's more of a personal thing. I'm sure some people are fine with the falsetto and it wouldn't have bugged them at all. And then putting all the daydreams about their future into the karaoke scene was kind of, I hated that. It was like, it was better when they were interspersed throughout the day, again, giving some of that credence to, it's like a faded thing for them to be together. They feel like they've been together forever. But, you know, they haven't been together forever. They just have this natural feeling like they have. Anyway, so that was frustrating. They were forced to take a break in the movie from the karaoke instead of it being their idea that maybe we shouldn't be so hot and heavy right now, like in the book. And I liked it better as a decision. In fact, that was probably one of the biggest beefs with the movie, because I've kind of talked about it already a few times, is that a lot of the stuff, it was like movie is taking it away from being their decision, and their decisions were very key in building their relationship in the book. So that was probably my biggest thing with it. It was like, I want them to be making decisions, and I guess they're trying to play off the faded thing in the movie by not making it their decision, but most of the things that were not their decision were then making it less of a faded sense, because it was like, oh, the lawyer just calls and changes his plans. But only with Daniel, they're forced to stop making out in karaoke, and that's just that, and that's like, that's not building their relationship, that's taking away from it. And then carrying on in the story, in the movie, when Daniel's brother Charlie gives Natasha the phone number after they have been split up for a little bit, it seemed completely out of character, because you don't have any of the building into it that the novel had, where the novel is like Natasha realizes some things about Charlie's character, and that helps her to ask the right questions and lead the conversation correctly so that she can get the phone number. So there were just some things with it that were like, this doesn't feel like a character trait that he would have. There's no building of the personality for why he would do that like in the book. So that was frustrating. The movie made it feel like the story was just the two of them instead of showing how all these characters around them were influencing their story. And that felt like a really important part of it. They also changed the backstory on her dad instead of it being like his fault for getting like a DUI and that ultimately leading to them being discovered as illegal citizens or immigrants. Citizens, I guess, is the wrong word. But anyways, instead of them shown to live there illegally like that, it was just that, you know, there's less reason to hate her dad now and be frustrated at her dad, and it's like, this is stupid. The relationship of her and her dad was a big part of building her relationship with Daniel, and again, there was just so much less backstory that it was frustrating. Also, again, they did change that timeline slightly, and Natasha and Daniel end up sleeping in a park together, and I was like, oh, this is why you changed the timeline, because you just wanted them to fall asleep together. This is a stupid movie trope, and I hate it, and I didn't like its addition. It added nothing to the story to have them fall asleep together. Stupid. I will say that one thing, movie-wise, it did seem effective that once Daniel finally got his appointment, that Natasha interrupting the appointment to find out if she got approved to stay or not was an effective way to change that narrative, since they didn't introduce any of the narrative backstory for the lawyer. But I did still kind of like it better in the book when Daniel's like, I don't want to tell you, but I know that you're not going to get it, and, you know, that it was, again, building their relationship, and we didn't get that. Yeah, and here's another small thing, another nitpick, but her mom didn't have her hair relaxed, and that was a key thing in the book. In the book, it was like her mom was trying to fit into America. She had been relaxing her hair for years. She'd relaxed Natasha's hair for years, until Natasha decided no, and so it was like, that was kind of a key element of her mom, and you just took that away, and that was stupid. She didn't proclaim Daniel to be her boyfriend to her family, which, again, small nitpicky, but they end up riding in a taxi together still, so it would have made sense to introduce that. And the stare should have happened in the taxi, which, yeah, I feel like it made more narrative sense inside the taxi. They were still talking in the taxi and stuff, so why not just throw the scene in there? I will say, too, that the narration was done in the movie by Natasha, which made her seem more poetic than rational, like she was in the book. In the book, she was very science-heavy, and I don't think she would have been as poetic as the narration in the movie made her seem. And they also made her like astronomy instead of physics, which is all still science-y, but I was like, you're just trying to tie into the theme of the sun as a star, I guess? The book, I will say, actually left me in tears from its romantic storyline, and I already want to reread it, whereas the movie, enjoyable as it was, I do not really care if I ever rewatch it, so the book definitely had a lot more emotional pull than the movie did for me. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all the major points I wanted to compare and talk about. So yeah, if you've read and watched The Sun Is Also a Star, tell me your thoughts on it, and if you would compare them in the same way and say ultimately that the book was better or the movie was better, or if you've only seen one or read the one, you know, let me know your thoughts on it, because I'd be curious to see what other people's thoughts are on it. It definitely isn't the kind of romance I'd normally go for, because normally the romance in a day feels very contrived and like there's too much, but especially the way that their romance was built in the book, like I've been saying throughout this whole review, there was that faded feeling to it. It didn't seem like just coincidence. It felt like their relationship was built on a past history, even though they were just meeting that day and just starting doing that day. They talked so much about how there were moments where I was like, this just feels natural, like we've been doing it for years, and that really built the relationship strongly for me. And seeing the other characters and how their story was interwoven into Natasha and Daniel's story was really what did it for me. So I really enjoyed it, especially the book. And yeah, so that's my comparison review of The Sun Is Also a Star. And I guess that's all I've got for right now. But this is the Umlaut Harper signing out.